Alright kiddos, so if you've already had perspective, that's awesome. So, how I want you to set your blocks up, I know that we're looking down at this, but if you could set them up so that they kind of have a little bit of like space, some negative space between them. So if you could imagine looking at these from like your point of view. So if you guys kind of take a gander back here, I'll just kind of put my blocks kind of out here in front of me a little bit, right? So we're just trying to make sure that we're not overly complicated right off the bat to get started here. So there's two types of perspective. Looking straight at an object, right? So if I hold this right in front of the camera, all we see really is a square. We see a slight shadow to tell us that this is a form, but really we're focusing on that kind of square shape. If I scoot it off to the side of my camera, then I can now see the top and I can see the right side. And if I do the same, I can see the top and the other. So I can do that any direction, right? And if I go down, I don't know if it will work, off to the bottom and the side. Now I can see the top, I can see the right, and I can see the back away from me. So this is perspective. It's drawing things in the illusion, I guess, in drawing the illusion of something three-dimensional on a flat surface. So if I were going to draw one of my blocks that's sitting out here in front of me, not this guy, but one of the ones in front of me, I would start with a square. Now, if I face straight forward in the room and I just look straight ahead, my sketch pad is off to my right of my body. The blocks are off to the right of my body. So that means I'm seeing the left sides of my block. So if I were going to have a vanishing point in here, it would be way out and off my page. But I can kind of understand or think about that and draw my, I don't know what you guys learned in design, but what are these lines called? Do you guys know? Maybe we don't know? Okay, let's write it down. These are called orthogonal lines. Okay, so the question is, are orthogonal lines diagonal? Yes, they are diagonal. The question is, are orthogonal lines parallel to one another? I kind of drew mine parallel to one another, but in reality, are they parallel to one another if we're drawing an illusion of depth and space? Not really. We want to have a vanishing point. We want to have something that they go back towards. So if I draw a smaller version of my square, all of these receding orthogonal lines have to eventually end up where my vantage point is, or my point of view, or my vanishing point. So hopefully you learn that. And then you can put parallel horizontals, parallel verticals back here, and actually turn that into some sort of a prism kind of shape. Do you guys remember this from perspective or from design? You guys maybe did something like this, right? Turn those into buildings and stuff like that? Mm-hmm. Okay, so where was your vanishing point? If you're a little person down here on the street and you're looking down that street, where's your little vanishing point? Down the street, right in front of you, correct? But in this room right now, I'd like all of you to sit up kind of wherever you're going to be when you're drawing. Just kind of sit in a relaxed pose and don't look at your blocks. Look straight in front of your face. Straight ahead. Squared up shoulders. Don't turn your head. Just look straight ahead. And in this room, that's where your vanishing point is. That's where your vantage point is. And then now I ask you, where are your blocks in relationship to that vanishing point or that viewpoint. Are they to the right, to the left? Are they really lower than that? So that's how we decide. So if I had my little, like if I were drawing the blocks in front of me, I'm sitting to the left of my blocks. My blocks are off to the left. But that doesn't mean that I want my blocks to be way over here only. But it means that I have to keep that in mind in order to show enough of the left side of my blocks. So if I look straight ahead, I see across from me over on the other side of my room by like the computer charging station. So I would put my point high and to the left of my paper. Then I have 3 little blocks sitting in front of me. I'll show the people at home maybe. I have 3 blocks over here sitting in front of me. So I'm going to draw the front facing first. I have a little cubed block. It's a little closer to me. I'm going to draw just the square facing front first. Then I have another square block that sits off to the right, and I'm going to draw it a little higher. And then I have a square, but it's not deep. It's not a full cube. And it sits slightly behind the little cube in front. So I'm going to allow some overlap there. So I'm just going to start with my little front faces of those blocks. And then what am I going to do? My vanishing point's over here. I'm going to draw towards my vanishing point. These are cubes, so I don't want it to look like they're long rectangles. There's a cube. And here's a half. It's not quite, but I want to make sure I shoot towards my point. Okay, does that make sense? Then I can start to shade a little bit. So if I want to say, okay, I want my light source to come from the front, I'm going to shade that left side darker, the top maybe a little medium, so it looks like it's being lit, really highlighted from the front. Maybe like I have a flashlight on my iPhone shining on these blocks or something. At this point, I'm just kind of arbitrarily picking. Again, if this were highlighted here, my shadows would kind of be back behind. But you guys can play around with lighting, okay? Does that make sense? All right, that's one point. We have one vanishing point as a reference. That one vanishing point doesn't have to be in the middle of your paper like you guys learned when you were doing design class. It can be off. It's wherever you're looking straight ahead. Okay, so guys in the room, you guys look back over here all of a sudden, and I shift myself right here. Where is my vanishing point in relationship to my blocks now? Right behind them, correct? If I shift over here, it shifts wherever I go. Does that make sense? Okay, 2 point. If all of a sudden I turn my blocks so that the corner of the block comes at me, so I just turned my block. Now I'm not dealing with that flat, square facing side anymore, parallel to my shoulders. This is parallel to me, parallel to me. Now I'm dealing with the corner of the block, and I'm dealing with 2 vanishing points receding away from me. Again, I'm sitting off to the left of my block, so I'm going to go ahead and remember that. So I want to maybe shift my right vanishing point. The problem with vanishing points, though, oops, let me scoot that up a little bit. The problem with vanishing points is that 2 vanishing points contained in a piece of paper or on a plane that's 2-dimensional, sometimes your vanishing points are going to be way out, way off, and out of the picture plane. So we have to realize that. Also, my line of sight is high. My blocks are way under my vision, my line of sight. So what is line of sight now? Line of sight is kind of like vanishing point, but guys, watch my head. Look back here at me. This is line of sight. I'm not looking down, I'm not looking up, I'm just looking straight. I'm trying to keep my eyes as parallel to the ground as I can, and that's my line of sight. So my line of sight is high, and my blocks are quite a bit underneath my line of sight because I can see the tops of my blocks, right? So I'm going to scoot them out, and I'm going to start with the corner of my blocks. I'm going to map out where I see the corner of my blocks. Now I'm sitting to the left of my blocks, and I see more of that kind of left side, and I see less of my right side. So my right vanishing point might be contained on the paper, and my left vanishing point is probably contained off the paper. So remember, I'm going to go towards my right vanishing point on all of my original vertical lines here, and then I'm going to go through my left vanishing point. Now I'm going to drop in my verticals and start making that make sense. This one's a little wider. Oh, gotta go to my left. I'm kind of shooting too high there. This is where a ruler is nice too. So if you have a ruler, you can actually line up. And then I'm drawing this block, but it's got too much depth here, so I need to come in and pull that back in a little further. To my left over here. Now what do I do with the tops? This back here, I don't see much of the side of the blocks. I'm actually doing this pretty accurately. But I want to put a vertical drop in here. I don't want it to be angled at all. But here, when I'm putting these dots, there's something I need to do right here. And what is that? So I need to crisscross. So on the left side, I use the right vanishing point, and on the right, I use the left. So crisscross these lines to get that top of the block. Okay, and that's 2-point perspective. So I feel like if this were my composition, that's not happy right there. I don't like that. So I'd probably adjust this a little bit. I'd make this block taller, I'd make this block shorter, or not shorter, but a little taller also. So I bring that down a little further. So I didn't end up with the overlap like I actually see it. So now I have a little bit more overlap here. Alright, so the reason why I want you guys to space your blocks out is just so you're dealing with that negative space as well, and that relationship between overlap. So, things that are lower, think of scale and proportion when dealing with perspective, or drawing, not dealing with, but drawing. We've got to squeeze it on there. Perspective. So, you know, you don't want super big things in the background and super small things. So even though this block is bigger, physically bigger, and these blocks are smaller, I still had to somewhat make this one a little bit smaller than what I see it or know it to be. Again, back to what we know and what we see. Same here. So make sure you think of scale and proportion. Placement. Where is your vanishing point? I'm going to say actually viewpoint. Or line of sight. In relationship to your block. Okay, what else did I say? What else is important here? Sometimes in 2-point, or I should say, I could say also, strike that most of the time in 2-point. you won't see. Both vanishing points. On the paper, on the picture plane. Am I off? Sorry, I'll scoot it up for me. Scoot it up, scoot it out. There we go, picture plane. Okay, sorry. So, I was going to say some of the time, but I would say most of the time. So, like in this case, this left vanishing point was off. This one was contained, that one was off. So, I wish I could move this little tealy boppy here. Okay. So when I say picture plane, that means also paper. We can put that in parentheses. In this case, it's paper. A 2D surface, 2D flat surface. All right. So today, I might have taken up quite a bit of your drawing time, but that's fine. We also have to learn things. So we still have a little bit of time. That's good. We still have like about 12 to 13 minutes. So what I would like for you to do is start fiddling around. You guys can start in one point if you guys want to set your arrangement up. Remember, one point is squared off to you. It's squared off to the room. It's squared off to your desk. Nothing is put on your desk at an angle. It's all nice and square. So if you guys look at the desks in my room, the tables in here, are they sitting in a 1-point orientation or a 2-point orientation in the room? Who's got the answer? You guys awake out there? They're sitting in a 1-point orientation. So how would we change? How would we draw this room? We could turn all the tables at an angle if we wanted to draw things in here at 2-point. But if we wanted to draw the room in 2-point, we would have to move ourselves to a corner and look at the room from a corner viewpoint and not sit squared off in the room. So if I were all of a sudden going to draw you guys this way now, this would be 2-point, right? Because I'm no longer square in the room. All right, so at this point you guys can kind of practice and draw in your sketchbook and look at the blocks, and I'll come around and help you out, okay?